So today I'm asking, what does the proliferation of abortion today say about our society? With me now is writer Jenny Holland and CEO of the Alliance of Pro-Life Students, Madeline Page. Jenny, what do you think this says about us as a society and how we view life and death?
Well, a few years ago, I would have been strongly against pretty much everything you said in your intro there. And it's important to say that I do remain pro-choice. But the numbers of abortions, the duration of the pregnancy that's allowed before you're allowed to legally terminate here in the UK, as well as the tenor of the abortion debate as a whole, both in the US and the UK, is really a flashing red signal that there is a lot of truth to the original sort of pro-life Christian argument, which you gave earlier, which is that there is such thing as a sanctity of life, and to discard that over kind of a right of privacy or a right of women's autonomy is dangerous. Now, I do need to stress that I do still believe that women's autonomy is contingent upon having some level of choice in this process of an unwanted pregnancy. But the way it is sort of sold to us at the moment, certainly in the last couple of years, is not good for women.
Okay, a very reasonable argument put forward there, Madeline. But we heard the term unwanted pregnancy. We heard this quite a lot. Can you delve into this a bit further on why we tend to see pregnancies as wanted or unwanted? And is that part of the problem we're seeing?
I think it's definitely part of the problem. I think it seems to be if it's wanted or unwanted is what gives that child value. But what gives that child value is that child is a human being from the moment of conception. Science shows us that. And there's a reason why when someone gets pregnant and the child is wanted, that we celebrate that and we're so excited and we talk about their boy or girl that they're going to have. But to then say that, well, if that child isn't wanted, suddenly that means that that child has no right to life, makes no sense. Either the child has a right to life or it doesn't, and our desire for that child should be irrelevant. If someone decides that once they've given birth at 6 months old, actually it's too much and they don't want that child, we don't then advocate that that child can be killed. So why does it make a difference when the child's in the womb?
Well, that's an interesting point because some places around the world, they are advocating for abortion right up until birth, aren't they? I think California were putting forward legislation for that. Jenny, is this a slippery slope? Are we heading down that path?
Well, I mean, I think the slippery slope argument is real, but I think what your other guest just said, I think it veers too much on the sort of rhetorical and the abstract to kind of parse an unwanted versus an unwanted child. I mean, I understand where that's coming from, but the reality is that women in all walks of life and in all types of situations decide they need to terminate a pregnancy. To me, the heart of the question is balancing the rights of the mother versus the rights of the developing fetus. I do believe that the developing fetus has rights, but unless we can have a wise and calm and humane debate, which at the moment seems impossible, as you rightly point out, that very deep moral question will go unanswered. I mean, I have been in a position of having an unwanted pregnancy and ending an unwanted pregnancy. And while I was doing that, I had a very interesting experience in a clinic where I saw literally all walks of life. A woman who already had multiple children, and they were all there, which was odd, and young teenagers to older women. I mean, it's really an issue that is not, you can't simplify to, oh, well, this baby is unwanted, because you can have many children that are wanted and for whatever reason feel that you cannot have another. And I think that's a very legitimate point. But where the pro-abortion, pro-choice debate has fallen incredibly afoul, in my view, of all sort of good sense, is that it has become extremely adolescent, and it has completely forgotten that when women were granted the right to this autonomy over their own bodies, they were granted the right to terminate a pregnancy. It was done so, I think, with this sort of implicit understanding that we would do so with some sort of wisdom and judiciousness. And we don't seem to be doing that anymore. I mean, I don't understand why you would have to have a limit of 24 weeks when, a lot of other countries have a limit of 10 to 12 weeks or 12 weeks, which to me is much more reasonable, for example.
Jenny, I'll come back to Madeline, but Jenny, I want to ask you, because you said you've been through this process yourself, and we often ask women, will it affect your mental health to have the child? And that's one of the questions we put forward when abortion is offered. But do you think we could widen that question and teach women more about the trauma induced from the abortion itself and the mental health issues as a result of that?
Well, that just wasn't my experience. Of course, I can't speak to other women's experience, but it never caused me any trauma, I'm afraid to say. Or not, as the case may be. But I don't personally, I've known so many women who have done this and have not had any trauma as a result. I know a few that have, but again, every woman is different. And I don't think, if you come at it from an overly ideological or theological point of view, you run the risk of totalizing and generalizing. So much like the other side then says abortion is fantastic and there's never any cost to be paid. That is absolutely abhorrent as well. But I have never been a proponent of the mental trauma caused to women. No.
Okay. But I think we should at least acknowledge it. And I do want to bring Madeline back in because, Jenny, you mentioned it's impossible to have this debate, but thankfully I think we're having a civilised conversation about this on GBNews. We are a platform that offers that. Madeline, where are the men in this conversation?
Well, they're told that they don't have an opinion and that they can't be in the conversation, which, as you said in your introduction, makes no sense. As you said, it takes two to tango, but also we need men to stand up and take responsibility and not make women feel like this is a choice that they have to make all by themselves. I've heard from friends who've said, if my partner at the time had said, we're in this together, I'm going to be here with you, let me help you, they would have made a very different decision and they would not have had an abortion. And to hear that is absolutely heartbreaking. When instead men just stand back and say, well, this is up to you. We're putting a lot of responsibility on women that simply isn't fair.
Absolutely. And thank you very much for organising the march that I attended at the weekend. Where can people find out more about your organisation?
They can go to marchforlifeuk.com and then my organisation is prolifestudents.co.uk.
Thank you very much. That was Madeline Page, CEO of the Alliance of Pro-Life Students, and writer Jenny Holland.